Thinking about opening an offshore bank account, not sure where to start? Today, I'm going to cover key elements you should consider when opening an offshore bank account. My name is Rusudan. I have been working with Nomad Capitalist for the last 4 years, helping high net worth individuals legally reduce their taxes and go where they are treated best. So in today's video, I'm going to break down the key elements that you have to take into consideration when opening a new offshore bank account. So this may be your first step into globalizing your business or your personal life. So it may feel like a huge step. But I do think that generally just opening one bank account is a perfect first step to see if you're comfortable with it or not. So I'm going to walk you through the 6 key elements that you have to take into account when you want to open an offshore bank account. So the first thing that comes to mind is for sure stability. So if you're like just venturing in a new country, in a new jurisdiction, and you're thinking about opening a bank account there, you have to make sure that it's stable, the economy, the banking structure is stable. You need to make sure that they have a government body for the banking where they ensure some kind of a limit that's ensured there. If something happens to the economy and it collapses, you still get your funds back. So these are the key elements that you have to think about in this regard. And I think that in most cases, it's easier to start with a country that you are more familiar with, maybe a neighboring country or maybe an offshore country that we talk about a lot, and it kind of feels like you're familiar with it and is more welcoming to foreign account holders because of how they are a financial hub or something like that. So I do think that the stability of the bank and also of the economy where the bank is operating from is key. And in this case, you also maybe think about the bank that has ties with that's I don't know, on London exchange, they have stocks there. So it's it gives you more guarantees that your funds are safe with them. And if anything at all happens in the country or in the whole economy in the world, you still get access to your funds and you still get them back. The next point is of course reputation, international reputation of the bank and the jurisdiction of the bank is key. Because you can, if you go and open a bank account in a company in a country where they are in a blacklist or something, you will not be able to use the bank account at all. You will not be able to send the money to this bank account or transfer money from this bank account. So it's important to choose a bank that has good reputation and choose a country that has good reputation. Because remember, when you're making a transfer from one country to another or one bank to another, you are indicating you see where the bank is located, what's the bank address, and also what is your address. So it depends on what is the account address. So it really depends on where the bank is and what kind of reputation they have. There are some ways, and sometimes it makes sense to have a bank account in a less reputable jurisdiction, but maybe opening a first offshore bank account, that's not going to be the best place for you. So try to go for a bank country with good reputation. Next key point is the access to multi-currency accounts. So remember, you're going outside of your comfort zone, maybe in a different country where the main currency is different from what you're used to. So just diversifying that and making sure that you have access to different types of currencies is key in this case. And while we are here, I would also say that it's important to make a conscious choice. Is it going to be a transactional account or is it going to be a wealth management account? So take that into consideration. And I think that from general perspective, it's easier to start with a transactional account. There's less requirements there. It's cheaper and it's easier to maintain this account than with wealth management, because with wealth management, you have a higher requirement for the initial deposit, and you also maybe are asked to make some investments, and maybe that's not something that you would be comfortable with in the beginning. But just a transactional account in a foreign country, that is definitely something that could be a good start to offshoring your personal and business lives. And the next key point that I would like to make is the reporting and compliance requirements. I think that we talked about that a lot because some people really value their privacy, and maybe you do not want to open a bank account in a country that's going to be telling every country that asks or every jurisdiction that asks that you have a bank account there. We all remember the days where Swiss banks had ultimate privacy. They wouldn't even confirm or deny if the bank account existed, if you had a bank account there. Unfortunately, nowadays it is no longer available and possible in any country. But you do have different types of privacy based on different countries. So if you're thinking about like privacy, maybe US is not the best location for you. US banks are not the best for you. Or maybe if you're thinking about like more privacy, you want to think about Switzerland, you want to think about maybe Singapore, and or maybe less known countries, or just to dive in and research which are the jurisdictions that provide the best privacy, because like I could tell you like different types of privacy and the countries that have different types of privacy, but it also depends on where your tax residency is and where you are located in. Like, for example, maybe your country and the country of the bank have some type of agreement where they share information between each other. So maybe this will work for me, but it will not work for you because the country that you have a tax residency in has some kind of connection with the country that you are thinking about opening a bank account, and they will be sharing information between each other. And maybe it's important for you to make sure that the account remains private. And there are different reasons why you would want to do that. For example, you want to have some diversification of your funds where maybe some credit or some legal issues will not be able to result in your funds being taken from this account. And it's a very good reason enough to make sure that you have a bank account that will not be common law knowledge for your tax purposes or for your like different reporting purposes. So this is key to, while you're thinking about where to go, just make sure you write this down and think about like, okay, do I want privacy? Which countries provide this privacy? And maybe just check some of the countries off because they are not providing the privacy that you want. The next key element to choosing the right bank for your offshore banking and right jurisdiction for your offshore banking is accessibility. Because remember, you will not be in that country all the time. So it needs to give you an option to open it remotely maybe. Or it needs to, first, they need to accept that you are not going to be resident in that country, and not all the banks will accept that. So the first question you ask, like, do they allow foreigners to open a bank account there? If the answer is yes, then you ask the next question, like, okay, what kind of documents do I need? And do I need to go in person or can I open it online? And even if you have to go in person, there are situations where you coordinate everything with the bank. Like you go through the KYC, you submit all the information, you provide the documents that they require. Maybe you like sometimes DHL it or sometimes send them online via their platform. And then at the end, when everything is approved and done, you just have to go in person and sign some final documents so that they can see you in person and verify your person by the ID or whatever. And they need the signature to be done in front of the operator. So that also, that like it's not the end of the world. You will get to travel and sign one document and that's it. And in some other cases, you can do everything online. And maybe for the first timer in regards to opening an offshore bank account, it's easier to kind of coordinate everything online. There are lots of banks like fintech banks and even traditional banks that are right now offering the option of remote opening. And basically, you just sign up, start the process online, and then there's a form where you upload all the documents and they have a verification process there. Sometimes you just send a selfie with your passport and today's date and make sure that, and that's enough. And sometimes you jump on a call with the banker so that they can verify you through the call. So there are different options. And I guess some of the banks and most of them are trying to be more flexible just to make sure that they have access to bigger audience and bigger pool of potential clients. I guess the online opening is definitely a plus when you're thinking about where to start. And one other thing that I would pay attention to, it's one thing to open the bank account online, but another is to manage the account online remotely. It could be the case where you have access to online banking, you have access to mobile banking, but there are some limitations for residents. For example, in the UAE, if you are not resident there, you can have access to the bank account. Even if it's a business account, you can have access to it, but you cannot approve all the payments. So basically, you would have an account, but you wouldn't be able to move money out of it. So those are the details that you have to think about in regards to accessibility remotely from another country. And also, like small details like the bank account, do you have to have a phone number that's connected? Is it okay if it's your like local number, or do you have to have another phone number from that country to receive the one-time codes? Or like in some situations, they still have like, a device for like a hard token where you just have to have this with you all the time. If you want to access it, you just look down and see where the code, what the code is. And in some cases, they have a soft token where you add an application to your phone and you have the one-time codes through your phone, but at the same time, you have to think about, can you set it up online? And like if you change your phone number or if you lose your phone number, is it easy for you to move to another device? Because like I've known, like we had a client who upgraded the phone, and then he couldn't get the soft token unless he went to the bank. And that's not ideal, of course, or the verification needed to be done in a certain way. So you have to think about all those things and just see what are the guidelines that the bank follows internally in those regards. The last item that I want to talk about is the fees. Of course, like the expense of maintaining the bank account is key in this situation. If you're like just trying to open a first offshore bank account, think about fees in two ways. The first one is just a one-time fee that you have to potentially pay when you are opening the bank account. And that can be anywhere from like zero, maybe there's nothing, to a few thousand. It really depends. Be very clear on like what you consider your expenses and ask the banker or whoever you're talking to, what are the fees that you need to take into consideration? What is the fee structure? Like, is it a one-time payment? Is it, maybe sometimes they will waiver the fees if you put 100,000 or 500,000 in your balance with the initial payment. And sometimes, even though we don't always think with the banks, we have the option to, but you can kind of negotiate within their policy, of course, but they can have an option where, okay, if you have like 1 million in my bank, I will not have you pay the bank account opening fees or something like that. So ask what are the options and the features they have, and maybe that is something that could work for you. But the second part of the fee is just maintenance, right? So maybe there's a monthly fee you have to pay just to keep the account open, or maybe you sometimes can pay it quarterly and it's going to be like not as expensive, or you can pay annual fee and it's going to be even less expensive than paying it on a quarterly basis, right? These are also the maintenance fees. And at the same time, you have to some banks have a fee structure where for every outgoing payment, you have to make a fee. And in some cases, it's going to be like a 0.1, like $1 or whatever the local currency is. But at the same time, in some cases, it can be up to like $100, $50 or something like that. So those are the things that you have to take into consideration. And also, sometimes they even have fees for incoming payment. So basically, anytime, even if it's coming from your another account, if you're paying yourself, like just moving money from one account to another, the bank is going to take $10, $12, $20 from the amount for processing the incoming payment. So at the end of the day, it all sums up. So it's important for you to think about, if I maintain this account, if I open this account, if I maintain this account, if I keep my like X amount as a balance here, what's going to be the cost for that? And of course, like there are some, even when we are talking about reputation, some banks that maybe have not the best reputation or are not established in the best reputable jurisdiction will have like less fees. So there's always for you to think, okay, maybe I prefer to pay less and go to like not the top, but like a fifth jurisdiction that comes up on my list, right? In this video, we covered 6 key elements that you need to take into consideration when opening your first offshore bank account. So make sure to remember, so it's a reputation, it's accessibility, it's multi-currency account option, it's fees, reporting requirements that they have, and stability. So now that we have covered all 6 key elements, you are ready to open your first offshore bank account. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode.
This is how to live like a king in Madrid.